You want a closer, right? Someone who can slam the door shut in the ninth, make the other team's bats look foolish, and walk off the mound like it was just another day at the office. That's what Evan Phillips did for the Dodgers. And now he's gone. Well, sort of. Because what just happened with Phillips and the Dodgers front office isn't your typical player departure. This is something far more calculated, far more strategic, and honestly far more telling about what Andrew Friedman is really planning for 2026. Welcome to Dodgers Daily News, and if you're trying to make sense of the chaos that just unfolded this week, you're in the right place. What I'm about to walk you through changes everything we thought we knew about the Dodgers bullpen heading into next season. Let's start with the basics. Evan Phillips is no longer under contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The team decided not to tender him a contract for 2026, making him a free agent. On the surface, that sounds like the organization is moving on from a guy who's been one of the most reliable arms in the bullpen. But dig deeper and you'll see this isn't a breakup, it's a timeout. Phillips was projected to earn around $6.1 million through arbitration next season. That's a significant chunk of change for a player who won't throw a single pitch until sometime in 2027 at the earliest. Why? Because Phillips is recovering from Tommy John surgery. He went under the knife on June 3rd after tearing his UCL completely. That's a 12 to 18-month recovery, which means even if everything goes perfectly, he's not coming back until late next season or more likely the following year. So the Dodgers made a business decision. They couldn't justify paying over $6 million for a guy who won't be available. But here's where it gets interesting. Andrew Friedman himself said they want Phillips back. Not in a vague, we'll see what happens kind of way, but in a clear, we're leaving the door open kind of way. That tells you everything you need to know about how the organization views him. Phillips isn't some washed-up reliever they're cutting loose. He's a core piece they're putting on pause. Let me remind you what Phillips has done since putting on a Dodgers uniform. Since 2021, he's posted a 2.22 earned run average across 211 appearances. That's elite. He saved 45 games, became the primary closer in 2023 and 2024, and in 2022 he was practically untouchable with a 1.14 ERA. This is a guy who turned himself into one of the most dependable relievers in baseball. He wasn't just good in the regular season either. Phillips was a monster in last year's postseason before the injury took him out of the World Series. You don't just replace that kind of production. You plan around it. Now here's the strategic angle. By not tendering Phillips a contract, the Dodgers free up a roster spot and financial flexibility right now when they need it most. The 40-man roster is down to 37 players, and that breathing room is crucial heading into the winter meetings. Friedman is known for making moves when other teams aren't paying attention, and clearing space like this is exactly the kind of preparation that comes before the blockbuster deals. The optimistic scenario here is that Phillips signs a low-risk, team-friendly deal later in 2026, maybe around the All-Star break when his rehab is further along and the Dodgers know exactly what they're getting. He becomes a mid-season reinforcement right when teams are gearing up for the playoff push. That would be vintage Dodgers front office maneuvering. But there's a risk. Other teams desperate for bullpen help might swoop in early with an offer Phillips can't refuse. If another organization offers him security and guaranteed money before the Dodgers are ready to commit, he could end up elsewhere. That's the gamble Friedman is taking. He's betting that Phillips values the relationship, the winning culture, and the opportunity to return to a contender enough to wait. Time will tell if that bet pays off. Now let's talk about the other move that got buried under the Phillips headlines. Nick Frasso, the right-hander who was once considered a promising pitching prospect, was also non-tendered. This one tells a different story. Frasso came to the Dodgers with the raw talent label. Big fastball, nasty slider, flashes of dominance, but the development never clicked. In 2025, between AAA appearances and injury rehab, he walked 42 batters in 77 innings. That's a control problem, and control problems don't age well. Then came the injuries. Shoulder surgery, hip surgery. That's a brutal combination for any pitcher, let alone one still trying to establish himself at the major league level. Cutting Frasso signals that the front office is prioritizing availability and reliability over potential. They can't afford to hold roster spots for players who might not contribute. This isn't a rebuilding team. This is a win-now organization with championship expectations. Every roster spot matters, and every decision is scrutinized through the lens of, can this help us win in October? Frasso, unfortunately, couldn't answer that question with confidence. So what does all this mean for the Dodgers heading into 2026? First, the bullpen needs immediate reinforcement. Even with Phillips potentially returning later, the Dodgers can't enter the season banking on that. They need arms who can pitch right now. That means exploring the free agent market, looking at trade options, and maybe even converting some starters into relievers if the situation calls for it. The rotation has young talent emerging, but bullpen depth is always the difference between a deep playoff run and an early exit. Second, the front office is clearly in win-now mode. These aren't rebuilding moves, these are calculated adjustments designed to maximize flexibility while keeping the championship window wide open. The Dodgers have a loaded lineup, a competitive rotation, and the financial resources to add whoever they need. But they also have to be smart about it. That's why these non-tender decisions matter. They create space to maneuver. Third, this offseason is far from over. The Dodgers are known for making splashes when no one expects it. Clearing roster spots and financial flexibility now sets them up to be aggressive at the winter meetings. Whether that means signing a top-tier reliever, trading for bullpen depth, or adding another impact starter, the pieces are being moved into place. Friedman doesn't make moves in a vacuum. Everything is connected, and these early decisions are just the beginning. So where does that leave us? The Evan Phillips situation is a reminder that front office decisions aren't always black and white. This isn't a goodbye, it's a see you later. The Dodgers want him back when the timing makes sense, and if they can bring him back on a reasonable deal later in 2026, this move will look like a stroke of genius. Nick Frasso's departure, meanwhile, reinforces that the organization is ruthlessly focused on winning right now. The potential doesn't matter if it can't translate to production when it counts. The 2026 season is shaping up to be a pressure-packed campaign for the Dodgers. The expectations are sky high. The roster is talented, and the front office is doing everything it can to put the team in position to compete for another World Series. These roster moves are just the opening act. What comes next could redefine the entire trajectory of the season. Stay locked in because this offseason is about to get very interesting.